when we look at this incident, I think we can understand why the Crawley family, family from the nobility, would be upset. Basically, the son-in-law, Mr. Branson, has been involved in something that would seem to be the same as burning down their family home or the family home of their friends. You can see why that would be upsetting to find out that your son-in-law held those views. However, I'd like to focus on the exchange between Lord Grantham and Tom Branson. Okay. He has a point. Right? Tom has a point here, and that is the following. Okay. When Lord Grantham looks at the home, he sees private property. But when Branson looks at the home, he sees he thinks about where that private property came from. Right? And it came from taxes and other penalties put on poor and working class Irish, particularly rural Irish, right, by a nobility that was propped up by an invading neighbor, right, and a neighbor that had done some terrible things, right, to the people in Ireland. Right? So he's basically saying, okay, yeah, you can talk about private property because to you, right, well, it's just, well, they acquired it, they own it, they legally own it. Right? But he's saying we can't look at that rule in isolation. Right? We have to look at the larger system of social relations. Right? And when you look at the larger system of social and economic relations, we see that this house was built and became their property, right, on the basis of an enormous amount of extortion of the people in the area. Right? So telling them, well, you need to respect private property in that context is questionable. In a sense, he's saying it is as if you beat up my neighbors, right? Stole their goods, and then when I came and burned those goods down, said, how dare you violate the rules of private property. So in one sense, Tom Branson is saying we have to look at this not as an isolated rule, right? But as a larger system of social relations. Okay? And he's arguing that the property came to be acquired as a part of this larger system of social relations. Now, he's not saying you can go burn down everything you want. Right? And this is a special case because they're attempting to change the society. But what he's saying is you need to stop and look at the question of how people get their property. And if you look at that, you can see that is unjust. Right? Property is being acquired as a part of a system that is grossly unjust and oppressive to a certain set of people. Right? And so asking them to meekly accept it is unreasonable. Right? He's basically saying either we have very different conceptions of justice, or we have the same conception of justice and you're being hypocritical and blind to what's really going on. So in a sense, he's saying, let's not just talk about the isolated rules. Let's talk about how they fit into a larger social and economic structure. Right? Let's look at the basic structure they're part of and use that as a basis for deciding the extent to which we're obligated to respect people's private property.